This is our full spoiler review of every episode, 8 episodes of Love, Death, and Robots, Volume 2. I'm Matt. This is the other Matt.
What's up, guys? Love, Death, and Robots. You got sci-fi, you got death, you got nudity, you got swearing, you got all sorts of things, and we're here to spoil it all for you.
Now, you said that in our non-spoiler top 3 episode, which is on our YouTube and podcast.
Same opening. I'm an ass.
I was so happy. Everything I had a problem with in the first volume was totally addressed in this one. It was more layered. It was more mature. There wasn't any silly nudity. The only sex scenes were really tastefully done. It wasn't just about finding a twist and popping it. I feel like Netflix covered all that stuff, front-loaded it with a really fun, kind of goofy one. And I feel like all these episodes I could show to just about anybody, whereas Volume 1, even the ones I really enjoyed, felt like they were way more niche. They were way more like, if you're a guy who likes games and violence and slasher movies and like comic books and stuff, yeah.
You gotta like deep sci-fi to like this one, and you gotta, have you seen this thing to like this thing. Volume 1 was kind of all scattered about, and so there was really high highs and kind of low lows. Volume 2, I've heard a lot of people saying that it's kind of middling, but I appreciated the animation overall. I thought it was a good watch. Obviously, I didn't like some episodes as much as I liked others, but the through line of Love, Death, and Robots Volume 2 is very similar to the way I thought about Volume 1. I enjoy it. I think they're smart stories. I really enjoy the animation, the creativity that's shown. I like the range of emotion that you go through watching this. Like Matt said, you got some comedic ones, you got some dark ones. And I appreciated, once again, like Matt said, that they toned back kind of that PG-13 juvenile. Let's show boobs a lot. Let's show a lot of blood. And some episodes are all just about blood and gore because that's what we like to see. Now, Volume 2 felt more focused. It felt more tight. It felt like more of the episodes were trying to say something. And then the episodes that were more just premise and kind of for your viewing weren't full of this kind of gotcha shock value stuff. It was more interesting and they presented the ideas. We'll get more into them. We got 8 episodes to get through, not 18 like the first volume, so it's shorter. We'll try to be quick, but this, once again, this is full spoilers. So if you have not seen Love, Death, and Robots Volume 2, please go watch that first, or you're going to get stuff spoiled for you. Matt, what's our first episode?
Episode 1 is Automated Customer Support. This is a good one to start with. It's another sort of Pixar-y, similar to Volume 1's 3 Robots, or the day the yogurt took over, or when the yogurt took over. This
impressive just like CGI, but it's like a comedic kind of the caricatures. All the people look very, like Matt said, Pixar, Wall-E-esque,
and definitely Wall-E in terms of its theming. It's a futuristic period where everything is taken care of by robots. We seem to be in some kind of like maybe Florida or Arizona place, retirement
home. People in like VR goggles enjoying a drink by the side of the pool. Everyone seems a bit elderly.
And everything is taken care of by the robots. And what happens is this robot ends up recognizing its master as the enemy and her dog. And then to me, it turns into almost like a parody of The Terminator, where you're just stalked by this relentless killing machine.
It's got that Jurassic Park Velociraptor kind of scene thing where she's trying to hide from it in these tight corners and trying to play with it. It's basically a killer Roomba.
Absolutely. And I really, really liked this episode. I thought it was hilarious. I showed it to my girlfriend. She thought it was pretty nice. She normally doesn't like anything animated. I'm trying to show her that there can be good animated things, so I picked my spots. It really reminded me of like her family that have moved down to Florida, and they have a lot of like money and wealth, and they're into technology. They have Roombas. Sure. They have little dogs that are, sort of trophies. I thought this episode was really funny. I thought that it spoke on a lot of things that Wall-E touched on with our reliance on tech, comfort, and the way we've kind of given up our freedom and sort of accountability to corporations. The way that customer service is going to be 6 hours and you're just going to have to deal with an automated voice. And
I was gonna say that's kind of the halfway point. Is she has this killer Roomba that's gone after. Of course, she's gonna call the company and see how to turn it down. But everything's automated, and to talk to a human, you got to wait like Matt's at 6 hours, 6 years or something. She needs to know how to turn this thing off. It's about to shoot her with a laser beam. So it's kind of this interesting idea of, well, what happens when we can't control our technology, and the people who know how to control it are basically robots themselves. Where does humanity come in? I thought that some of the jokier bits kind of didn't land for me. I appreciated kind of the wilder action and the goofier tone. Since we're talking spoilers, I want to get into the ending. Matt, do you have anything else you want to say about like the overall before we?
Let's hit the ending.
So, I think we're flipped on this. I enjoyed the ending more than I enjoyed the core or the meat of the episode, if you will. The episode ends where she defeats the robot and the customer service thing says, "Oh, good job, but unfortunately, it sent out a signal to every other vacuum bot in existence. Will now hunt down your DNA until it's scrubbed from the planet. So we have the end of the episode of her and her neighbor who helps save her, kind of going off into this post-apocalyptic futuristic world where they're going to apparently have to kill every line of this vacuum robot thing, or they're going to die. I liked that idea, and I was like, ooh, let's see another 5 minutes of just them fighting and stuff. But I liked the twist there. Like Matt was saying earlier, not every kind of episode needed to have a twist, but the ones that did, I thought kind of worked. And this one, I liked it. It turned from something comedic to something far more darker, but then left it there. But yeah,
what I liked about it, I loved how they introduced the male neighbor, and it makes it look like he's jerking off, but he's just sort of working in his property. Then you see him cleaning his gun, and you think, oh yeah, sure, America, everyone's got a gun.
Yeah,
and,
he's going to be the hero of the story.
Yeah, and then him not being, and then her kind of using her yoga to do the splits and take the shot. I thought it all tied together nicely. I guess I didn't mind the ending. I thought it was perfectly fine. Like, okay, now they're just going to go off. The whole thing of like every robot coming after them.
Maybe.
Well, it also just feels like this would have happened by then.
Yeah,
and it just seemed like a little bit silly that all of a sudden they would turn on them.
Maybe this was the start of it, though. Her and this argument over where do we put the picture, robot versus human, is what started this whole thing.
Okay, yeah. Like, it wasn't enough to turn me off the episode. I still really liked it. It was the only time actually where I felt like, okay, you lost me slightly, but overall, I still think it was one of my faves.
I had a good time with this episode, and I think that, like Matt said, if you're looking for something a little bit more goofy, you don't want to start off super depressed, this is a good first episode to jump in, especially if you liked episodes like Three Robots, When the Yogurt Took Over from Volume 1. And it's a good starting place for people who have not watched Volume 1 at all and just want to see what Volume 2 is like. So it gives a pass for me. I enjoyed it.
All right, let's move on. Episode 2 is Ice. This is a bit longer of an episode. It's 11 minutes or so, maybe 12 minutes. And
one of the only animated ones we get.
Yeah, it's beautiful animation. Kind of reminds me of, it's like really strong, thick, black line drawing, kind of comic booky.
Very
Batman.
Sharp. Everybody's kind of like, it feels geometrical, even when you're just looking at a character's face. It's like you can tell that the whole entire frame was very much planned out artistically.
Yeah, to me it feels like comic book where there's a lot of angles, a lot of sort of like Dutch angles. They use framing really well. They'll play with the ratio, and it's just like incredibly expressive. I think you had mentioned that this is the same animator that did the work on Zima Blue. I thought there's just so much...
I could be wrong there, but it felt very similar, and I believe that's what I heard.
Yeah. I think overall, I totally related to this one, and I felt like it was very nuanced and kind of mature. One of the best things about this one is the part where it's like about these two brothers that are...
I was going to say, what's the story of it? You got the brothers,
the two brothers,
modification.
Yeah, they're... well, to me, it was that one of the brothers never matched up to the other one, and it was about him always kind of like tagging along. They end up joining, and the older brother's so effortlessly cool. Everybody loves him. He's so confident. You know, he's got long flowing black hair. The other brother's got like
he hides behind a hoodie. He's very, not confident.
And when they kind of meet up with these new people that his older brother gets along with so well, I love the moment where they had to kill some time, and he took a drug, and
he just takes a hit of something, not knowing, kind of unsure about what it is.
And he ends up going into this kind of like psychedelic moment and kind of getting lost in it. And I'm like, I've totally been there where you're in a new situation, you smoke a bit of pot, and all of a sudden you're thinking, oh my God, I'm being weird. Have I not said anything for a while?
Yeah.
Is it weird?
Am I the weird one?
Yeah. And it's just, I feel like while all this crazy shit is going on, there were so many really cool human elements with it that I totally resonated with. Like I said, the whole twist of his brother in the end pretending to fall so that as they were doing this run away from the whales, and the whole team is like, leave him, no, don't be weak. And he's...
Do you think that that's the twist? Is the twist was... So the brother hurts his ankle, or he hurts his ankle, and then the older brother, or the one who doesn't have the genetic modification, has to, reach his limit in order to save his brother and run from these giant, like, ice whales that are breaching on this planet. At the end... they show a shot of him, jumping off of his foot that was supposedly injured. And I went, because I wasn't sure if it was a twist that they were implying he never was hurt in the first place, which would be weird. Why would he sacrifice his life for his brother to gain face? I thought it was kind of implying that since the genetic modification, that he was already fine, that he had healed or he was good. And it was another reminder that even though you just survived this very, very, life-threatening thing, your younger brother is still going to be more... He's not even affected by it. That's kind of how I took it. Yeah, but then maybe that's why it just didn't hit for me. Once again, the thing with this whole episode is it's beautifully animated. So I was locked in there. There were several times where I like cosmic stuff and cosmic backgrounds, so I was visually intrigued the entire time. If anything, those little plot details were kind of just whatever. But the stuff that did work, like Matt said, when he takes the drug, and there's this really cool transition, like almost the whole entire world is underwater, and then it clears away, and he kind of sees this new stark white world, and he's in his own other place. I thought that stuff all really, really worked. So any mistakes that there were, I were easily able to forgive. I liked it though. Very
interesting.
good.
Yeah, I thought for sure that was the whole point of it, was that he's fine. And it was just like you said, just to teach you to go push yourself and go beyond the limits. And because I felt like that was what they were building up to, but I think it works both ways. So overall, I thought that episode was really, really strong. It was on our top 3 for a good reason. Do you want to move on to the next one?
Yeah, let's go on to the next one. Let's be quick.
Number 3. Oh, this is our favorite. This was number 1 on our top 3.
Go check out that video, by the way. We have a spoiler-free top 3 if Matt didn't already mention it. But yeah, this was the winner. What is it, Matt?
This is Pop Squad.
Pop Squad. It's a squad. They come in. If you're parched, they give you soda. You have an option of orange, you have an option of Sprite, or you have an option of killing all children because overpopulation has become an issue because they have a rejuvenation potion that has replaced soda. And that's what this whole entire story is about. It's a cop that has to go and do the dirty. They refer to these people who live underneath. It's a lot, Matt. Now that I'm trying to it's
a lot. It's very Blade Runner-y, and it's a really interesting premise. It's basically, would you live forever if you had to give up never having a baby, and that no one can ever have a baby? We can make you live forever. You go and you get your boost, but the people that refuse, that rebel, they call them breeders. That's
what I was gonna say. There's kind of like this class warfare kind of thing. Definitely. Because the people who are rejuvenated, who have this like immortality via medicine, they live above the clouds in this very utopian, perfect kind of world where they have all this glamour and glory. And then the breeders, or those who want to have children, don't want to live forever. They live down in this post-apocalyptic destroyed earth that looks very much like The Last of Us. And the core is of this cop, Detective Briggs, who has to go and arrest the breeders, the people who are having the children. And the easiest way to get rid of the excess population is to literally just kill the kids.
Yeah.
Which, it takes your toll. It takes its toll, and that's the whole story of Pop Squad, is this guy starting to realize maybe killing kids isn't good. Matt, there's like 2 scenes in this that kind of floored me. The end scene and the scene we were discussing in between episodes with the guy who shoot. Yeah, you want to talk on that a bit?
We get to the point where this guy's realizing that he doesn't want to maybe do this anymore, and he's starting to doubt himself, and one of the breeders that they're arresting breaks free of being held by a cop, grabs a gun from the cop, points it right at the main character, calls him a child killer, and you see our protagonist just sort of accept his fate, and he goes, I would deserve to die. He doesn't get killed, but it sets up that he'd be willing to sacrifice himself. And this could have very easily have just really played on the shock value of we're going to kill kids, because it's killing kids. They don't ever show it. No, they don't ever show it, but and he's haunted by it. The kids are sort of done in a more like
Pixar-y. They're made to
very
look
Pixar,
cute.
Like big foreheads and eyes, and they look kind of goofy compared to the more like angular, drawn out, kind of soulless adults. But I think the animation works for it. I just think this one brought me to tears seeing it at the end. I mean, maybe it's just the age I am, but I just love, like, sci-fi should be using extreme circumstances to explore the most human ideas and ask a question that you like, what is life? Is it to this episode?
What is legacy?
Yeah. What is your legacy? This episode is basically saying there's one character that says it's more meaningful for me to see the world through my daughter's eyes and to appreciate this as sort of like the last moments, or the moments that are limited.
I wanted to touch on this because the last scene is this, not standoff, but Detective Briggs follows this girl home. It's a little convoluted.
It is
in the
a
way
great standoff for sure. It's very like Tarantino, Inglourious Basterds kind of feeling.
He follows this woman home. She's a young woman and she has a daughter, and he sits down. He's now kind of realizing maybe there is a gray area. Maybe I'm the bad guy. And like Matt saying, she's explaining why she wants to have a child, why she's so sick of, after living for 200 years, everything feels the same. And there's a moment there where the detective is having a touching moment with the young daughter who's trying to play with his hat, and the woman or the mother goes for the gun.
Yeah.
And right there, he reacts. He puts the gun to her head. The baby starts crying, and he immediately moves his sight over to her. As a person watching, unless you like really hate kids, the baby starts crying, and you can tell it's not like some manufactured voice actor. Like, this is a baby crying. The mother is pleading for her life, saying, "No, just kill me. She's just a child." They're really ramping up the tension, and the audio and the sound and everything, it just starts to strike you where, as a human being, like I'm saying, unless you hate kids, when you hear a baby cry, one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to have a sympathetic response or you're going to be annoyed. I've seen horror games use crying children as an aggregator, whereas this is very much showing you the empathy. And it gives you this guttural human reaction. And I think that's a lot of what this episode was trying to hit at is, where's the humanity in this guy who keeps killing kids over and over and over? And when is he going to break and kind of retrieve that inner matriarchal drive of, I need to protect the young because that is the future of our generation? And they don't say any of this in the episode. It's just a very, very clean, 3 or 4 minute dialogue scene. In fact, I think it's the longest scene in the whole thing. But just the combination of the baby crying, the mother, and the voice acting between Nolan North, it's just really, really effective. And Matt, you said you were brought to tears. I was swelling up because when you have a scene that's done that well and they paid attention to every single element, it manufactures a response in you that you maybe not even had seen coming. And for something that is this dark, it puts you in this mindset that kind of is a lot of thought. It gives you a lot of thought-provoking questions. And I'm not trying to steamroll your opinion here, Matt. I feel like I'm talking a lot, but this one really resonated with me. And like you said, maybe it has to do with the age. I hit 30. I'm thinking about having a family soon. And if you put me in this situation as any of these characters, it starts to really become blurry as where you draw the lines and where duty ends and your job as a human.
Well, I think it's like kind of a midlife thing. Life's so exciting when you're a kid. Everything's new. You got to go to college. You go through your 20s, and you kind of hit 30, and you realize, as things start to become kind of more predictable, and that's when you start thinking like, oh, I can see why people would have kids. I mean, You can only see Star Wars for the first time once.
Exactly.
And then it's like watching. I read about people on Twitter saying like, or seen a video of somebody showing their kids Star Wars and getting to see the kid watch the big pivotal scene.
It's fun to watching kid reacts to Luke, I am your father, and you're reliving that moment through the kid's eyes. So everything they talk about in this episode really hits. I love the editing. I love the dreary atmosphere. Definitely my favorite of the season. But we got to talk about other episodes. Matt, do you have a piece you want to say on this before we move on?
No. This is an amazing piece of art and my favorite episode of
2 thumbs up from both Matts
of both volumes. Okay, let's move on. This next
both
one
volumes
is definitely. Also, this next one is also fantastic. This is Snow in the Desert. It's a real like slow burn. We got a bounty hunter guy that's been hunted by everybody, and he's a real badass. I think they do a great job of setting up the universe as sort of like this Mad Maxy Star Wars in the 70s.
You see a guy like dehydrated in this little thing. It's like water thief. So you're immediately like, okay, resources are limited on this planet. It's bad news bears.
Another idea I loved in it is when 2 of the characters meet, right before the sun comes up, they see the sun coming up, and he asks her, "Oh, do you have a day tent?" And they're in this world where I guess the sun is so strong, or there's no like UV protection in the atmosphere anymore, the ozone layer. So everybody has to
sleep during the day.
Yeah, they sleep during the day, and I had to like, oh, it's such a cool idea. The animation in this too. There were several. I feel like they must have done some kind of hybrid because the movement of the characters, I've never seen such believable movement and like drinking animations in CGI.
There's another
before.
episode later. I think we'll talk about this, but I think Snow in the Desert is another one where, like you said, I think maybe they even did the LA Noire thing of putting a real actor's face on a CGI and kind of half CGIing it because it's uncanny valley, but not even in a bad way. If the only thing that doesn't look real is the face itself, but then again, it's just because maybe the eyes aren't there. It's hard to describe, but like I don't know if it's just the people who are behind Love, Death, and Robots, but if every big budget action movie had this level of CGI, it would be everything would be believable. Like seeing big budget CGI and being like, oh, this is bad, and then seeing Netflix and it's almost lifelike, scarily lifelike.
And also the way that they were, you know how in Mandalorian they don't use green screens, they use these like LED screens so they can actually have the actors looking behind them and seeing the background. That's what this felt like a lot of the time for me too. And I felt like maybe it was a mix where the longer shots they used real people, which is hilarious because normally you would use a distant shot of CGI in a live action movie to disguise it. This is almost like, oh, well, we use real actors when it's further away to get that believable movement, but not spoil the illusion and have it. It's amazing. But I mean, this one felt like Volume 1 can be a bit more like niche and a bit more kind of like extreme, but there's a lot of like really fun kind of like slasher, like you say, genre stuff. This one to me felt like, this was some pretty badass sci-fi, but done.
This is what sci-fi is made. They talk a lot about, it shares themes with other episodes of longevity of life. The whole twist of this one, or the whole spoiler aspect, is that Snow, this guy, is like Deadpool. He can just regenerate. He gets in a bar fight, his arm gets blown off. He doesn't seem very bothered by it. He links up with this woman, and she's trying to kind of save him from this fight. And she takes off the bandage, and he has like little fingernails growing back.
I love that it slowly grows back. It's not just it's that bit more like kind of gross realism that is really cool.
Yeah. And it's a character earlier on says, well, there's a high bounty on your balls, like your testicles. And you think it's like kind of this like, oh, gross. But literally, people want to study his reproductive organs and want to study how he has this immortality, because then, it's immortality. There's also discussions about AI, and there's some world building stuff. Some of that stuff didn't always work for me, but the thing I liked about this episode is the way that it slowly introduces you to this world just through normal action. It sets up a lot of intrigue, like Snow goes and buys something from a seller, a black market seller.
You think it could be drugs or something.
Yeah, or what is it? And the reveal of that being strawberries kind of pushes this humanity onto him. I enjoyed it. Also, props for having the tasteful sex scene. Finally, in Love, Death, and Robots, we get a tasteful sex scene that isn't just all boobs and then a little bit of male butt to balance it out. Like, this was well done. I really enjoyed the whole vibe of it. Maybe individual scenes I could have taken or left, but I really like the characters. I like the animation. I like the world. Well,
and also, how about there's a nice... It has a twist where you realize that, okay, she's used to be alive and now is like mostly a machine now. She has a soul and she has kind of a brain, but she gets blown away. And his whole deal is, me sad because me immortal and wife was not, so she die, and now we can be together. It's like,
now I have an immortal.
Yeah, there's a whole thing on paper. It's pretty. It's like it's kind of shallow, but I think in execution it works really well.
I agree with you. And also, I like the idea of the female acquaintance who becomes his love interest being AI, because, someone in the comments, let me know, what's that theory of the ship that if you replace pieces and pieces, at what point does it not become the original ship, but a wholly new thing? Right. And that's kind of what they're discussing with her is, well, she used to be a human, but then she got in an accident, and more parts of her body have become robotic, even parts of her brain. But she says, no, it's still me in here. I still have a soul. At what point is humanity become cyborgs, become cybernetic, become AI? And that's not explored too deeply within the episode, but within the character, and I appreciated that quite a bit.
Yeah.
I like this one.
Perfect sci-fi. At this point of watching the episodes, I'm thinking, holy shit, Snow in the Desert, we've had Pop Squad, Ice, automated customer support, which I really like.
Stacked season.
I'm thinking every one of these would be my favorite in the last one. And then this is where it started to falter, which is interesting because you were a much more fan of this one. The next episode we're talking about is Tall Grass.
Yes, the Tall Grass. I'll give a brief one because it's very straightforward. It's Western frontier. They don't give a specific time, but I believe it's when they were colonizing the Wild West. There's a man. He's on a locomotive, a steam locomotive, going through these great big fields, these plains of tall grass. The train takes a stop. The conductor comes over and says, "Oh, it's okay. It's just building up steam. You have time for a cigarette, but don't trail too far away." Of course, the guy's having a cigarette, and he sees nice little whispery voices, and he sees lights in the tall grass, and of course, he goes and follows it like an idiot. It turns out to be monsters. They don't really explain what they are. It's kind of whatever. It's kind of like a 3 or 4 minute scene. He survives. There really is no death, love, or robots in this thing. It ends with the conductor saying, "You know what? You might not want to tell anybody about this because no one will believe you. I'm not even sure what they are. Maybe spirits of people who have become lost in the Great Plains exploring." I like the vibe of it. I'm a fan of supernatural stuff. There is a book called In the Tall Grass by Joe Hill and Stephen King. It was also made into a Netflix movie. So if you're into tall grass and Netflix, there you go. I like the vibe. I like the story, but maybe if I wasn't into that kind of stuff already, I would have been kind of how you are, Matt. I just kind of left, okay, what was the point? Why bother? For me, I enjoy, like I said, I like the spectral stuff. I liked maybe that they were discussing the the supernatural, the mystique or the magic of the Great Wild West before it was colonized into what we know as America. But they didn't really discuss that or make it a point enough where you think that would be what they were saying. For the most part, it was just a spooky story. I thought it was fine. Definitely not the best, but when compared to some of the other ones that kind of are meandering, I liked it because I like the vibe. Matt, what did you like or dislike about this one?
Yeah, it had a really strong cohesive vibe, really strong animation.
It was like stop motion-y too, which is why I
Yeah.
appreciated it. It
Really
wasn't
kind of stuttery. It looked like
directly
it was
animated.
running at so like 14 frames per second or some odd number.
I
like
can imagine
that.
someone would be pissed about that. Some people would hate that, I'm sure. But I thought
I think
was
it
cool
fit in
stylistically.
because it looks like in the time period that's what maybe a silent movie would look like in the theater.
I didn't even
at the
think of
time.
that. Yeah,
When
good idea.
I like when they got back onto the train and they drive off and they say that it always happens when we come here. These people come
Yeah.
out. We think it's from some other being, other dimension or something.
A portal to another world opens
Yeah,
up or something.
and I did like his explanation of, well, like, no one's ever going to believe you anyway. And if this was 150 years ago or whatever, yeah, maybe they wouldn't. The meaning I was trying to glean from it was, okay, perhaps him getting off the train, him being this guy's like looks like he's about 40s in his 40s,
Yeah.
and maybe it was, and how some people never come back and some people do. I was like, okay,
Maybe he was the one who maybe was not going to come back. Maybe you're watching what happened to all these other spirits happen in the episode, but this guy was just lucky enough to escape, kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah, and this guy's he's alone, he's traveling alone, and I thought, okay, maybe this is one of those things of people just kind of lose their way in life, and we don't know why.
I think it's
and-
all about the dangers of smoking. Don't have a cigarette, and you won't run out into the tall grass.
Yeah.
You know what? Now that I'm thinking about this, I feel like maybe this was just a story about a cryptid or something weird, where if you exchanged out the glowing zombie monsters in the fields for maybe like a Bigfoot, people have
Yeah.
been like, "Oh, it's a Bigfoot story," you know. And the fact that it didn't go with a notable cryptid and just went with these spirit monsters kind of made it ho hum.
I liked it way better. I liked it being multiple beings and being human looking and kind of mindless and just kind of lusting and like afraid of the light. So I feel like this worked well as a short story where we have a very simple premise and it's left open ended enough where you can go, okay, yeah, it's about people that give up on life, or it's about people that are
When you come off the end of Pop Squad and desert in the snow, you're
Yeah.
starting to be like,
it's
okay,
a tough
but
act to follow.
correct, yeah. Which I think is a big reason why you probably didn't like it as much, or even me. I was like, okay, whatever. Still like it though.
All right,
Next one?
next up, also one that I thought was a bit whatever, but was perfectly fine. This is just sort of like a fun sort of cartoony type episode. This is called All Through the House. Basically,
yeah.
if Santa
Very
Claus was like basically alien, like an H.R. Geiger-esque alien.
Yes.
These kids discover who it is, but they're very scared of it. And then it ends up being like the joke at the end is that it's actually really friendly. And like
Yeah.
when it's doing that extended growl, you think it's going to reach out and kill them. It like vomits up a perfectly wrapped present. And it also hears their name and then checks and tells them like, you're on the good list. Yeah. And even like these arms too, because in the first Alien movie, there's a funny part where the humans are crawling and it's really creepy. They're crawling through the ducts, and when the alien makes its big reveal, it kind of does these jazz hands.
Yes.
And we have a review of the first Alien movie on the channel as well.
Yes, go check it out.
So I thought that this one was like perfectly fine. A
It's
lot
so
of fun.
succinct. It's like 5 minutes. It's kids wake up. It's Christmas Eve. Oh, we want to see Santa. Santa's a monster. At least you're good. You got presents. I like the little end of the bit where, what would have happened if we were naughty? And it's kind of like this childlike wonder sort of thing. But once again, when stacked to Pop Squad or Snow in the Desert, this is kind of the tall grass of like this very self-contained little monster thing that's cute. And I liked the festive music at the beginning. It sounds very whimsical, very Spielberg. And then it's very, very alien and very grotesque. So it does a cool juxtaposition of tones very well. But as a story, it is what it is. I liked it. It made me laugh.
I liked
but
it,
I don't
yeah.
think it has too much narrative depth there.
But it doesn't need it, and it doesn't overstay its welcome, and it's just funny, and it's like beautiful animation. I mean, I'm looking at the hair on these models. It's just incredible because it's kind
It
of
was also
it
stop
like-
animation.
Oh, it's stop animation. Yeah. Okay. So there's
Is
like
it-
which is beautiful because Alien being
There's like Coraline kind of.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And like how Ridley Scott Alien was all practical effects, and I think it was a nice homage to kind of all of that. And even though like the nostalgia of kind of being a kid and like Christmas presents and 80s movies and this, like, it wasn't mind blowing, but I still think it was pretty strong.
It was fun. Don't watch it with kids. It'll scar them. Don't do that. Or if you really want your kids to go to sleep on Christmas Eve, you turn that on. What's the next one we got here, Matt?
Next
The
one is
internet's being all
Life Hutch.
poopy.
Speaking of aliens, speaking of actually, you made a great correlation to this one being similar to automated customer support. We've got
It's essentially the same kind of story, but you just vastly different tones and settings.
a fighter
Matt
pilot
explained.
lands on a planet. He goes into this life hutch, which is I guess like some sort of like base that they have on these.
He's running out of oxygen, so he needs to find somewhere that's pressurized, otherwise he will die in the elements.
Yeah, so he goes in and should be fine. And normally a place that would protect you. The problem is that the like service droid there has gone haywire and is trying to kill everything. And it ends up being this like real, like visceral, intense, sort of like lots of pain. And he ends up
There
getting.
was a cringe moment here for me that I didn't get in any other episodes. There's a moment in which the robot, he's trying to hide. He understands that the robot uses this tracking light to sense whether someone's alive or dead. He's trying to fool it, and for a second, he fools it, and it steps on his hand.
And he
as
can't. It's like the
checking out
T-Rex
something else.
rules. If you don't move, it can't see you.
Yeah, exactly. And there's just a shot where he pulls up his hand after two of his digits right here have been stepped on, and they're just mashed. And there, when he lifts it up off the ground, I was like, ugh, which I don't often get either from horror movies or animated stuff in general. So, but this one too, like Snow in the Desert, I wasn't sure. The pilot is played by Michael B. Jordan. You'll know from Creed. You'll know from Black Panther as the antagonist. There were times where I was like, is this just his face put onto a CGI? Or did they CGI it a little? Because it's maybe the most lifelike CGI of a face that I've ever seen. Also, it has the advantage of being in a shadowy environment, so they can hide a lot of the details within the darkness.
Yeah.
But I was vastly impressed with the animation on this one. The only reason I like automated customer service a little bit more because of its goofy tone, its kind of, wacky story. But like this one, it's like you said, Matt, it's intense, it's self-contained. I enjoyed it for what it was.
Yeah, I thought it was really fun. This felt more like a Volume 1 episode because it was a little darker, and I wouldn't recommend this to everyone. But if you like slasher movies and horror stuff, and it had kind of like a fun, cutesy turnaround where he uses basically a laser pointer, like you're messing around with a
Like
cat.
a cat.
Yeah, I thought that this was really fun. I thought it was, but it was, like you said, it's another repeated idea, but I had like good action, good stakes, good tension, a clever solution. I thought this was like a
shouts
very
out-
solid episode.
Shouts out to, like in Volume 1, the episode Lucky 13, which didn't feature as much as this one, but there was some space combat, some ships flying around, shooting. That's the whole idea is he's coming in as part of a squadron. They're attacking something. You don't know what it is. And then he kind of gets shot, and that's how he tumbled onto this planet. But I liked that they were showing some starship battles and some laser stuff, like that higher sci-fi stuff that I appreciate. But yeah, it was a good time. I don't really have anything to complain about it. If anything, it just felt not as, when compared to Pop Squad or Snow in the Desert, the story is just not as, it doesn't have as much oomph to it.
That's fine.
But
Like
that's about it.
in a meal,
Oops, hit my mic,
Pop
sorry.
Squad is sort of the.
What's the next one, man?
Like a Pop Squad, and those ones are
sorry.
like the total highlight of the meal, the piece de resistance. This was like
Yeah,
a
these are the
really good
appetizers.
potatoes. It was there, it fills you up, and it's kind of edgy, and I think it appeals to sort of like the more like I said, sci-fi horror slasher crowd, and you can tell Netflix is like, okay, started with the colorful one, hit them with the dramatic ones. Now we can put the like more kind of gross out, flinchy ones. It almost reminds me of when people used to go to drive-in movie theaters. They'd show a kids movie first, and then when the kids fell
Yeah.
asleep, they'd have the mature movie, and that's what this kind of feels like. Oh yeah, maybe put on some
Grindhouse-y.
Netflix. The kids see the first episode, and then the later ones are this like, oh, brutal. All right.
Put the kids to sleep. Yeah. Next one.
Last one. This is The Drowned Giant. I thought that they were right to put this at the end. I thought this was very underwhelming. I kept waiting for there to be kind of more of a point. A giant washes up on shore. It's dead. There's sort of a thoughtful guy who's watching it and kind of narrating it. And
It's just him narrating for 13 minutes, really. That's what that is.
Yeah, and the whole point of it, from what I can gather, is that he's just seeing how people probably would act if no scientists or authorities were involved. People would be scared. Then they would just want to take selfies with it. They'd want to play on it.
Treat it like a toy.
Yeah, they treat it like a toy. They would steal from it, and it would just kind of people would be assholes. I guess what I kept waiting for there to be a bit more of like a turn, and the whole time I
Some
kept
sort
thinking
of
like,
twist.
yeah,
This is the episode that needed the twist, or needed that 3/4 of the way through. Here's another action, another event that is going to close it out. I remember the whole time sitting there, at least after they established it, you get the first 5 or 6 minutes. Okay, where are we going? Where are we going? And then it fades to black, and I go, "Oh, is it over?"
yeah.
And
I was thinking,
all right, okay,
is this going to be something where that giant was from our world and these people are from a
Yeah.
smaller world? Because the whole time I'm
It
thinking
needed something like that.
I was like, okay, well, where are your authorities? Where are your scientists? What's going on? Why is this thing just being kind of abandoned here? And like, I get it. Okay, people are assholes, but it was just, it was a great premise, and it really needed to go somewhere else, I think, to be more effective.
They could have just made it a sea creature and not in a giant. It would have been the same story. I think the idea that it's a human, very human giant, kind of, had a little bit more weirdness to it. But like Matt's saying, it's kind of just like people are afraid, and then people are studying it, and then they start graffitiing it, and then by the very end, the only twisty or morbid bit is after some people have come and they've cut off the head, they've cut off different parts of the limbs. It's kind of just this big carcass. He arrives, and you see kind of like a bunch of people gather around fire pits cooking some sort of meat.
Right.
So that maybe implies they were trying cannibalism or eating the giant. And that half second, I was like, ooh, that's interesting. Do that for a second. But once again, it's very much this underwhelming, but almost intentionally soft-spoken guy. Just like, a giant washed up here, and now I'm going to talk about how I feel in kind of fluttery, poetic words for about 10 minutes about the grandiosity of humankind and how it looks. And it's interesting. But once again, when compared to even something like Life Hutch or automated customer service that has some sort of action or some sort of energy, this one was very much like calm throughout. I almost felt myself like, okay, this isn't what I was expecting. I don't hate it. I don't love it. But it's not.
I think it was sort of, if you think of a lot of the episodes here as stories told by people around fires all throughout history, maybe way like hundreds of years ago.
This is the old man who has
this is the old man telling
story.
a story to sort of get you to go to sleep.
Yeah,
and
I don't know where else they would have put this besides the end. If they would have put it at the top, I think people would have been like, "This is weird and not also sci-fi at all."
So now,
I mean, it is, but
like, okay, after I watched Volume 1 at your recommendation, and I really enjoyed it. And then when I found out that Volume 2 was only going to have 8 episodes, I was really excited. But you had said, well, actually, Matt, they're just splitting them up so that there's going to be Volume 2, 8 episodes.
There is a Volume 3.
And they've already got Volume 3. So now I'm wondering, are there really that many strong episodes of Volume 3? Because to me, the first 4 episodes in this are the best I've seen out of the 2 volumes. So I'm very curious to see if they're going to have the same strength of quality in Volume 3, or if they're just going to all maybe we'll see a bit more Drowned Giants and a little less Pop Squads.
I think we'll have 1 or 2 bangers in there. You'll have a Pop Squad or 2, but maybe the majority. And you can also tell that they're trying to balance out things that are, more serious things. You get some lighter ones in there, like the automated customer service and the Santa one. So maybe they only had so many of these like kind of bright and colorful ones. I hope there's a bit more variety. Definitely something I saw throughout this whole entire volume was they did hit on the topic of robotics quite a bit. They hit on the topic of regeneration and elongated life, both in Pop Squad and Snow in the Desert. So some of those themes there were similar. Some of the vibes were similar. Actually, at one point when we were watching Pop Squad, because once again, this followed right after Snow in the Desert, right? It was Snow in the Desert Pop Squad. My girlfriend was watching, said, why is everyone able to survive for so long? I said, no, that's this one. And then the one guy in the last one.
Yeah.
But when you're in the whole mood and you start to, whereas the first one, it's like, hey, 1 second we're talking about 3 robots in the post-apocalyptic. The next second we're talking about like a lucky ship. It's very different. Whereas this one followed similar sci-fi.
That's a pretty good point too, with especially having like Pop Squad, everybody lives forever. And then if the main twist in your next episode is that one guy can live forever,
maybe you should have separated those a bit.
Yeah,
and
it's really not as exciting. This one guy, because
I feel like a lot of people too, they're going to watch this, they're going to say, well, it's kind of samey, a whole lot of, but if they would have literally just taken a few episodes and swapped them around, people would have felt more of the variety. Mm-hmm. I think with this one specifically, you have to go and really treat each episode as its own world and take it and leave it. There is some crossover between different stuffs, not narratively, but as far as themes, like I was saying. But honestly, a lot of great sci-fi movies and a lot of great sci-fi stories have similar themes and talk about the same stuff. It's just how they present it and the characters they present it with. I think if you have 2 episodes or 3 episodes that are similar right back to back, you're going to be a little bit more noticeable about it. But otherwise, I think it's fine. I think people are overreacting. If anyone says that Love, Death, and Robots Volume 2 is bad or a waste, I don't agree at all.
Is that that's what you've been? I haven't seen anyone else's reviews on this, but I was blown away by most of this. I thought that this is everything I wanted to see fixed from Volume 1, and made me really excited for Volume 3. And there's like some of I definitely will go back and rewatch a few of these and share them with some friends. It's like such beautiful, thoughtful.
I've watched Pop
sci-fi.
Squad at least 4 or 5 times now.
Yeah.
Just because, as a creative and as somebody who likes to tell their own stories, you can learn a lot from how to pace things, even if the stories or the twists or even the characters themselves aren't super, super strong. A lot of what Love, Death, and Robots shows you is that you can have a really cool, interesting idea, or even one that's simple. And depending on how you craft that world and show it to your viewer, you can have some really effective moments. And I like learning from all these different kinds of worlds and stories. It informs on me. So I'm excited for Volume 3. I hope it's more variety. I hope they do a little bit more gore and some darker stuff, because that's what I prefer. I'm not sure if I like Volume 1 or Volume 2 more. It's comparing, completely different things. I think as an anthology, Volume 1 probably works a little bit more because there was more variety. But I had a great time with Volume 2, and I can't wait to see what Volume 3 has to offer. Hopefully more Pop Squad-esque stuff.
All right, well, thanks very much for watching this. These videos are available on our YouTube channel and our podcast, A 90s Kid. We have lots of full-on spoiler review discussions of movies and TV shows. We've got spoiler-free top 3s and top 5s. Check them out. I'm Matt. That was the other Matt. Thank you for joining us.
Bye-bye.